Good morning. I'm Katie Montgomery Mears, and I am glad to be with you for this In It Together devotional. So, I wanted to talk to you this morning about having hope for each day and how God grants us new mercies every morning. And that phrase, new mercies every morning, actually comes from this tiny little book in the Hebrew Bible that we actually don't really study a lot. It's Lamentations. As the name implies, it is about lament. And so it's not the first one that we often turn to for Bible study or for comfort. But I think that's a shame because there is a lot of wisdom in that book about lament and how to lament, but also there are some nuggets of hope in there. And so I wanted to talk today a little bit about that with you. So let me first just tell you about the structure of Lamentations. It's 5 chapters, and each chapter is 22 verses. Well, 4 of the 5 chapters are 22 verses. One of the chapters is 66 verses. And that's important because there are 22 letters in the Masoretic Hebrew alphabet. And so each of the chapters functions as an acrostic. And so it goes through each letter of the alphabet in Hebrew. And for one of the chapters at 66 verses, there's just 3 verses per letter. But this might seem like a weird detour into grammar and just like a fun nerd fact, but the truth of the matter is that there's something really important about the way Lamentations was written, which says that order comes out of chaos. That the acrostic, what it does is it sort of puts organization to the way that the laments are happening. And actually, what this book is about is a lament for a city. So Jeremiah has seen Jerusalem destroyed, total social collapse, total economic collapse. There is nothing left. The city has been razed. He looks on it and it's a pile of rubble. People have died. It is an appropriate book for us to be looking at right now as we see so much in collapse from unjust systems and from racism and from violence and all of those things that make us realize that, everything around us might be collapsing. But here's the deal. Here's where Jeremiah is in this. In the middle of chapter 3, actually in the exact middle of the book. So middle of chapter 3, which is the middle chapter of the book, Jeremiah points in a totally new direction. And here's what he says. He says, I'll never forget the trouble, the utter lostness, the taste of ashes, the poison I swallowed. But then he turns. He says, I call to mind. So he stops himself and calls to his mind his renewed hope. And he says, therefore, I have hope. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. One of the hallmarks of faithful lamentations is that there is hope in the midst of it. There is a calling out to God, and there is trust that divine intervention is always possible. So lamentations are protest, and they are grief, and they are calling out in anger and frustration. But the hallmark of a lamentation is that it includes hope. It trusts that God can make things new, can heal this land, as it says in Chronicles. So I think that the structure of this gives us a sense that our lament is not just some thing that we do and then it's not like we just cry out and there's nothing good for us in it. It reminds us that there is God in the midst of everything if only we will acknowledge God. And that God is present and that God can be present because it says your faithful love is new every morning. The word that it says for faithful love is hesed, which actually is covenant love. And so it calls back all of the covenants that God has made not to abandon us. The covenants that God has made to take care of us and to love us and to be with us all of the time. And it says that your faithful love is new every morning. Your mercies are new every morning. So we don't compound today by thinking about tomorrow. We don't look at the problems of today and also worry about the problems of tomorrow. God gives us mercies for today. Tomorrow, God will give us new mercies. Yesterday, God gave us different mercies. Every day, we will be sustained by God's mercies. And why are we getting new mercies every day? I mean, why wouldn't it just be easy if God gave us enough mercy today to cover us for 2 weeks and then we get to go back to the well and get new mercies? But so much of this is about trust and how we trust in God to give us strength to make things right. So it's kind of like the manna in the wilderness. There's only enough for today. We can't keep it overnight. We have to trust that God will be present tomorrow, and that God will provide again tomorrow, and that there will be new manna or new mercies tomorrow. And so this week, I want to challenge you to trust that there will be new mercies tomorrow, and that when you are crying out in pain or in protest or in grief or lament, that you will include a call for God's deliverance and a call to God, that you hope that things will be different, that it might start with you, but that God would be working in you, working in the world to heal the land, that we have hope in the midst of all of our grief, and that God will provide you enough strength and enough mercies each day.